Do you want me to start,
we will.
Mr. Chair, or will you begin?
One moment, Minister. We will just wait for the cameras to leave the room.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're ready to go. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 59 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance, pursuant to Standing Order 108, Bracket 2, and the motion adopted on Wednesday, September 28, 2022. The committee's meeting to discuss Bill C-30, an act to amend the Income Tax Act. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of June 23, 2022. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I'd like to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. Interpretation for those on Zoom, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. I'd now like to welcome before us the Honourable Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. And welcome, Minister. And the Minister is accompanied by Department of Finance. We've got Nicholas Leswick with us, Assistant Deputy Minister, Lindsay Guire, Director General, Legislation, Tax Legislation Division, Tax Policy Branch, by video conference members. So if you are asking of one of the officials, you may want to look at the screens. And also Pierre LeBlanc, Director General, Personal Income Tax Division, Tax Policy Branch. Just, Minister, before your remarks, on a personal note, I know how strong you have been in supporting Ukraine. And we do have a number of Ukrainian, well, my wife is of Ukrainian descent. We've got, I know Julie is also of Ukrainian heritage, and of course Yvonne Baker, and I'm not sure any other members. But on behalf of all of our committee, we do want to thank you for the great support that you have provided Ukraine. And I think I speak for all of us here, and the gains that Ukraine has made in the last while. So we are all celebrating that. So thank you, Minister. And now the floor is yours for your opening remarks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I believe Nick is also of Ukrainian descent. But I think maybe one of the things we all are united on is our support for Ukraine, whether we're of Ukrainian descent or not. So thank you for starting there. Okay, Mr. Chair, it's my pleasure to appear before you and members of the committee to discuss Bill C-30, the Cost of Living Relief Act, which would deliver targeted tax relief to the Canadians who need it most by doubling the goods and services tax credit for 6 months. That would mean up to an extra $234 for single Canadians without children and nearly $500 for a family with 2 children. Seniors would receive an extra $225 on average. C'est une aide.
This is additional support for approximately 11 million eligible individuals and families. And Bill C-30 is only one part of the new support measures. As members of this committee know, Bill C-13 includes the Canada Dental Benefit and a one-time supplement to the Canada Housing Allowance.
2 further pieces of legislation. Up to 500,000 children under 12 will be able to go to the dentist. Low-income renters, some of the most vulnerable among us, will receive a little extra breathing room. These measures are part of our affordability plan, which has already been putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians this year. We've enhanced the Canada Workers' Benefit. We're cutting child care fees in half by the end of the year. In July, we increased the OAS by 10% for seniors 75 and older, and we've doubled the Canada Student Grant until July 2023. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chair, our plan is focused and fiscally responsible. It supports the most vulnerable Canadians, the lowest paid workers, low-income renters, and families who can't afford to take their children to the dentist. And we are doing it without unnecessarily adding fuel to the fire. We need to prevent inflation from taking hold. That would make the cost of living higher for everyone for several years. But we cannot compensate every Canadian for the increased costs of the pandemic and President Putin's invasion of Ukraine. If we did, inflation would get worse. Canadians are sensible people. I know they understand that. While Canadians are cutting back on their spending, our government will do the same. We will do our part to avoid adding fuel to the fire.
$1 cut in government spending in our spring budget. Canada does have the lowest deficit this year in the G7. We have the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7. Our AAA credit rating was affirmed this year by Moody's, S&P, and DBRS. And our new targeted inflation relief measures have an incremental cost of just 0.1% of Canada's GDP, an incremental cost of $3.1 billion. This legislation is about finding a balance between compassion and fiscal responsibility. This support is the right thing to provide Canadians now when they need it. Canada can afford to be compassionate to the most vulnerable among us, and we will be. I'm happy to take your questions now, and as you said, Mr. Chair, we have finance officials here who can answer questions too.
Thank you, Minister, for those opening remarks. We are going to start with our first round of questions, and we're starting with the Conservatives. Then they have the floor for 6 minutes. And we have MP Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, are you aware that Finance is currently conducting an inflation study?
Finance conducts many studies, and of course, it's important for them to be looking at inflation,
the Finance
interest
Committee
rates,
is
and
conducting
growth.
one.
Oh, the Finance Committee. Sure, of course I am.
Great. And you know that we've been eager to have you come before Finance Committee, as was laid out in the motion, to come and have a deep dive into inflation. Are you aware of that?
I am glad to be here with you today and dive into anything you'd like to talk about.
Well, it's curious, Minister, that you only seem to want to show up here when you're asking for $2.6 billion in taxpayers' money. And certainly, it's just odd that you would only come up for that. And I do hope you will be coming back for the full inflation study, because I think there's a lot of issues outside of C30 that we need to have a discussion on. So, Minister, the hard work that should have been done over this summer, there's been a lot of criticism about the spending of this government, particularly from a macroeconomic viewpoint, where you alluded this to in your own opening comments of adding fuel to the fire. In Chapter 9 of your own budget 2022, you talked about both a pause on certain spending of up to $3 billion, as well as a strategic policy review by Treasury Board. Why, Minister, did you not use the summer to say we are going to be giving more supports to Canadian through GST tax relief, but at the same time we are shelving or postponing or stopping spending so that you would lessen the issue of inflation? Why did you not do that work?
Well, Mr. Albus, I think that is exactly what our government is doing. As I said in my remarks, our government believes that today we need to find a balance. And the balance needs to be between providing support to Canadians, targeted support to the most vulnerable who need it, while maintaining real fiscal responsibility. I think the support we're talking about today, the GST tax credit, is actually now support that everyone around this table agrees is the right thing to do. It's exactly what the IMF is recommending. It's targeted, it's focused, it reaches the people who need it the most. And we have really been careful to keep an eye on spending. We recognize that now is the time for fiscal responsibility. The budget in the spring was fiscally responsible. And as I said in my opening remarks, Canada today not only has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7, we have the lowest deficit in the G7. So we are finding that balance, and I look forward to getting support from all members of the House for that balanced approach.
Well, Minister, a balanced approach would mean that as you offer something, in this case, targeted tax relief, you would also then correspondingly make sure that there is cuts. That isn't the case. Since you're so much about fiscal responsibility, then, Minister, maybe you could just tell us when you believe that the budget will be balanced.
As I said again in my opening remarks, we are taking clear steps to show fiscal responsibility. One of those steps is a really responsible budget that we tabled in April. And let me really underscore, lowest deficit in the G7. It does include a $9 billion cut to government spending. I know that Canadians right now are having to make careful choices in their household budgets, and I think it's quite reasonable of them to expect the same careful management by the government of the country's finances, and that is exactly the approach we're taking.
Most families, when they balance their own budget, know when they will come back into balance, Minister. So I really would hope that you would start doing the hard work. And because both Conservative and Liberal ministers of finance have worked very hard in the past to come to the Commons with a balanced budget. And if you can't even give us a date, that says to me it is still just talk. But let's talk about C30 as it is. This one-time help, which Conservatives do support, is welcome relief for families. Now, as you said, is about $467 of support through this bill. Now, contrast that with the fact that the average family of four is now spending over $1,200 more each year to put food on the table. And that's not to mention the rising costs of heat, gasoline, and rent. Do you acknowledge, Minister, that this bill is not enough to fill that shortfall for these Canadians that would be targeted by C30?
Mr. Albus, as I said in my opening remarks, the careful balance that the government must find right now as Canadians grapple with inflation, as the Bank of Canada fights inflation, is quite different from what we needed to do when COVID hit and we had to shut down the economy. When COVID hit and we as a country decided we're going to close things down to save lives, and we did save lives. A study led by David Naylor over the summer showed that 70,000 additional Canadians would have died had we suffered U.S. levels of mortality. So we did the right thing. But we actually all collectively said, I'm getting there, okay? But it's an important contrast. We collectively said we need to shut down the economy. And in order to ask people to do that and to prevent economic scarring, it was necessary for the government to put a floor under the economy, to support businesses, to support households. The inflation and affordability challenge is quite different. We cannot fully compensate every single Canadian family and every single Canadian business for the higher costs of inflation. If we did that, it would be this Sisyphean struggle, and we would be pumping huge oceans of money into the economy and making the Bank of Canada's job even harder. That's why
Minister,
we're being
I'm really glad you raised the Bank of Canada.
Thank you, MP Albus, and thank you, Minister. That is the time. We are moving to the Liberals for questions. I have MP Zarowitz for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and I want to say thank you, Minister, for being here with us today to speak on Bill C-30. But I also want to note that I very much appreciate that you've mentioned that you're very happy to take questions on inflation. Inflation is indeed an extraordinarily important study that is before our committee right now, and I'm also very happy that my colleagues on the other side are taking the opportunity to ask questions. You've been talking a little bit about the pandemic, and you've mentioned some of the positive things that have, some of the positive track record that we have as we're coming out of COVID. And we indeed have had a remarkable return to growth coming out of the lockdown days of COVID. You've mentioned the top GDP growth of G7 this year, the recovery of over 100% of our jobs, and our low debt to GDP ratio. But I will say to you, despite all of this, if I talk to people in my riding of Davenport, they will say that they continue to be worried. They see the rising costs of food. They see that in general their costs of living are going up. And for them, they're a little bit worried because it's unpredictable for them. And it seems like there's no end in sight. So I know we have a number of new targeted measures that we're introducing to help with the increased cost of living. But can you maybe spend a minute or two to tell us why it continues to be important for Canadians to be contributing to the Canada Pension Plan as well as to employment insurance?
Thank you very much, Ms. Jarowitz. And let me just say for Canadians who are struggling with the cost of living, I think it's important for all of us sitting around this table in the House of Commons to recognize that the challenges Canadians are facing are real, and that all of us are addressing those challenges from a really privileged position. Things are hard for a lot of people right now. The bill that we are chiefly discussing today won't solve everything, and I think it's important for us not to claim otherwise. But it will provide real support, real inflation relief for 11 million Canadian households, for people who really need that help. And I think that is why all of us around the table now support it. I hope that we will all see our way to supporting the $500 payments, one-time payments, to help Canadians who are struggling to pay their rent. Again, that's a targeted measure for people who are renting, among the most vulnerable among us. And then finally, I do want to offer a pitch for dental care. I know people in your riding and in mine talk about it a lot. And, I have to say, and I will turn to Mr. Julian to recognize the work we are doing together with the NDP on this. But I think for all of us, if we step back, I think, and I hope that all of us would agree, Canada shouldn't be a place where a kid doesn't get to go to the dentist just because their parents don't have enough money. You referred to the CPP and EI, and I'm glad you raised those two essential programs. You're right. The reality today is that the global economy is volatile. There are a lot of challenges. Countries around the world are grappling with high inflation, higher, in fact, than here in Canada. The war in Ukraine continues. And I strongly believe that in these times of uncertainty, it is our responsibility as legislators to give Canadians the security that comes from knowing your pension is going to be there when you retire and you need it. EI is going to be there if you lose your job. And that's why our government strongly believes that it would be a real mistake and a dereliction of our duty towards Canadians to do anything to harm the integrity of these two essential programs.
Thank you. And I have one more question for you. I think we've all been seized by the horrible devastation of Hurricane Fiona to the East Coast. It's been very emotional to see. And we know that climate change is accelerating faster than anyone's predicted. And we know that we're going to see far more Hurricane Fionas, far more Lytton BCs, and far more devastating impacts to many parts of Canada as a result of climate change moving forward. And I'll tell you, Davenport residents have told me very clearly they want us to continue to accelerate and decarbonize and move to net zero as quickly as possible. So my question to you, Minister, is how do we balance the need to aggressively move to net zero by 2050 by investing in the things we need to adaptation, resiliency, reducing emissions, while also making life affordable for Canadians and ensuring a strong quality of life?
I think that is an excellent question, and in some ways it is the central question of our time. And I don't think that any of us should understate the challenge that the green transition is posing to Canada and to the whole world. Olaf Scholz, who came to Canada this summer, said to me once when he was still finance minister, he said that the green transition is the biggest economic transition that the world has faced since the Industrial Revolution. That is huge. And I think we need to understand that the magnitude of what we need to do. And as Canadians, a small export-oriented economy, we need to understand that the green transition is happening. The world's major economies are partners, the EU, the United States. They have decided that this is where they're going. And so, you started your question talking about Atlantic Canada and the planet. And of course, that's a really important reason that we need to act on climate. But there's also just a kind of cold, hard economic reason. It is where our partners are moving decisively. Canada needs to move there too.
Thank you. Yeah, Minister, thank you. MP Zerowitz, we've gone well past the time, but thank you. And we are moving now to the block. And MP Sainte-Marie for 6+ minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, hello. Very happy to see you here at the Finance Committee. As it has been said, we all support this measure. It's targeted. It seems that we'll be passing one session on studying it, and so I would like to congratulate you. I think that it's a very good measure. In the Bloc Québécois, we agree with the principles in C31. However, I do have some questions for you on the bill. Honestly, I don't think it was very well written. As I read it, I wonder if Quebec even exists. Beginning on the part on rent, I'm afraid that Quebec will not be really represented in this section. When we look at the Canadian housing benefit, no one in Quebec is receiving it. We personally have a program that is more generous, but the eligibility criteria are very different. How are you going to take into account Quebec's reality, Quebec's programs, as well as this new Bill C31? Thank you.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for this question. And thank you for your support on Bill C31. It's great to find things that we all agree on, and then to move forward quickly once we find these measures we agree on. Concerning housing, and concerning the specific reality of Quebec, I think, firstly, it's important that I recognize that it's Elections Day in Quebec. Congratulations. Our government, the finance department, have worked closely together with the government of Quebec. We will continue to do so. No matter what the election results are, we will continue to do so, and I cannot predict what these results will be. And I'd like to underline that we always will continue to work with Quebec, and we have the desire to do so. Now, if we talk about daycares, for example, this is an especially important topic for myself. We found a solution that was good for Quebec and also for all of Canada. I agree with you. We need to really look carefully at housing. I would be very happy to work with you and with the new government that will be elected in Quebec. Thank you. Thank you for this answer. This afternoon, I would like some type of guarantee that you and your government are committed to modify C31. We in the committee do not have the ability to change amendments in terms of spending. Only the Crown has this power. So I would like the guarantee that Quebec will not be harmed in Bill C31, will not be forgotten. And next, dental care. In Bill C31, dental care is for those under the age of 11. However, in Quebec, we have a program that is for 9 years and under. And so in terms of insurance, sometimes checks will be sent to a family, sometimes it's not, but sometimes a check is sent even though they were already covered in Quebec. And so we see that C31 is not aligning with Quebec measures. And so once again, I would like a guarantee in terms of housing for Bill C31 and for dental care. I would like to know that the government is committed to making sure that these programs line up and making sure that they take into account Quebec's reality. Will you be committing to this today in front of the committee?
Question. Et c'est un peu délicat.
Thank you for this question. It's a delicate topic, working with Quebec during elections, as people are going to vote right now. What I can say is that we will be working in good faith with the government of Quebec. And I think that these two topics, issues that you have brought up, the question of dental care and of housing, are topics that we all agree on in terms of our target. We understand that Quebecers, just like all Canadians, have issues concerning affordability, and of course, this concerns the topics that you have brought up. And so I can guarantee that we will work in good faith with the Quebec government, and we will do so, of course, after election results. And we will be discussing with you as well. It will be very beneficial to us to hear your ideas. Thank you very much.
And welcome MP Julian to our committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations for you assuming your position. And thank you, Minister Freeland, for being back before the Finance Committee. Jagmeet Singh raised the issue of the GST rebate months ago. I mean, as Canadians struggled, we saw more and more Canadians struggling to put food on the table to keep a roof over their head as costs increased. And so my question is twofold. First off, why did it take so long for the government to follow Jagmeet Singh's lead and put in place the proposal? Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, what does the Finance Committee and the House have to do now to ensure the timelines are kept so that people will actually see this benefit at a time when they really need to have the additional money in their home?
Okay. Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Julian. And thank you for your energetic support of this measure. And I really am glad that we all agree that it's the right thing to do. I think the fact that this committee is meeting now to discuss it now is important. I would hope that given that we all support this measure, we are able to move quickly through the House, get it to the Senate, and move quickly there. In order to actually get, sorry.
Well, just more specific dates?
In order to get the payments out to Canadians, we need to move really fast. Well, let me put it this way. The faster we move at committee, in the House of Commons, in the Senate, the more quickly CRA can get the payments to Canadians. CRA, we're a rule of law country. CRA can't act until we have passed the legislation. I would like to get these payments to Canadians as quickly as possible. And now that all of us agree that it's the right thing to do, I think there are no good excuses for procedural delays.
Okay, but I think we agree that things need to happen quickly. I was hoping to have a date where you would expect the payments to be made. But I'll move on to a couple of other questions around eligibility. Is it something, will Canadians be able to qualify for this benefit if they file their taxes after the eligibility period? And the second issue, which of course came up with CERB and the CRB, was the issue of the money being counted as income in calculation for benefits in the following year. So can you assure us that the money Canadians receive through this rebate won't impact their income calculations for other benefit programs in the next fiscal year?
The counting of this benefit and eligibility will be the same as the GST rebates, which people are currently getting. So one of the reasons that this is a good mechanism, from my perspective, and I hope you'll agree, from my perspective, the reason this is a good mechanism for getting support to vulnerable Canadians is two reasons. One, we already have the GST tax credit in place. It's a program that works and a program that has been designed already to target the most vulnerable Canadians. So we're using a system already created. Second thing is we have a pipe already going to people. So we don't have to, as we did, for example, with the CERB, create a new pipe and create a new system. Both of those things should provide a lot of comfort to Canadians and help us to act quickly, which is, I think, what we all want to do.
So you're saying it won't hurt income calculations for benefit programs, and I'm comforted by that. I'm going to go on to the next issue, which is, of course, at the same time as Canadians have been struggling to put food on the table and make ends meet, we've seen certainly record profits in some industry sectors, and Canadians see that contradiction, and they're concerned about it. We have been saying, Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have been saying, it's important to eliminate the GST on home heating and medication costs for people in need. Are you prepared to do that, to put in place that additional supports for Canadians at this critical time?
We are always looking at all measures and are always open to new ideas. I will, though, say, Mr. Julian, or it's hard for me. I want to call you Peter, and I want to call Julie. With all due respect, we're always looking at additional measures. It's a volatile and evolving environment. I will say, though, that I take fiscal responsibility very seriously, and I look carefully at that side of the ledger as well. And so any new measure that we contemplate, we'll always have to think about where is our fiscal position.
Okay. We have seen some record profits from some of the large grocery chains. And there are concerns about the profiteering taking place, what many are referring to as greedflation. Why hasn't the government taken action on that so that we're all in this together?
Our government absolutely does believe that we need to all be in it together and that everyone needs to pay their fair share. That's why on September 1st, our luxury tax came into effect. It is a new measure for Canada. I think that it is a measure that makes clear our government's commitment to fairness, and I think Canadians appreciate that and support it. As you also know, we are putting in place a COVID recovery dividend of 15%, significant, and a permanent tax on banks and insurers of 1.5%. So we are acting. I will also say, I think that all new taxes have to be looked at very carefully. We have to be sure that they are fair and that they're not going to put any kind of burden on economic growth.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, MP Julian. Members, we are moving into our second round. I think we've just got enough time to get through a full second round if we keep it very tight. We have the Conservatives up first, and MP Lanceman, and welcome to our committee.
Yeah,
MP
thanks,
Lanceman,
Mr. Chair.
for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and thank you to the Minister for coming. I'll keep my question short, but we're the only country in the G7 that has raised fuel taxes since this period of record inflation, and I just want to know if you're aware of that, and if you still think that the plan to triple the carbon tax is a fair one on Canadians.
I absolutely believe that a price on pollution is the right thing for Canada and for our economy. As we heard in question period, putting a price on pollution actually was the position of the Conservative Party in the 2021 election. It was Preston Manning actually is one of the early advocates of a price on pollution. So I don't see it as a partisan issue. I see it as the economically right thing to do. For us, one of the key elements of putting a price on pollution is ensuring that money goes back to Canadian families. So you and I are both MPs in the GTA. Ontario families are getting $745 back. Families in Alberta, Saskatchewan, more than $1,000. That makes it fair for the most vulnerable and also a really effective market-based mechanism that is going to help our whole country with the green transition.
Thanks, Mr. I think the parliamentary budget officer would agree because he says that families in Ontario, in Manitoba, in Alberta, and in Saskatchewan actually pay more than they get back. And families in Ontario will actually pay $360 more in carbon taxes than they'll get back. And you talked about the $234 that families would get back from measures in this bill, and that eviscerates every single dollar and then some. So again, do you think it's fair that tripling the carbon tax at a time where there is 40-year record high inflation, the highest interest rates in the G7, and inflation, unlike deflation, which you talked about as one of the measures, do you think that's fair on Canadians at this time?
Well, actually, just to set the record straight, the GST tax credit will give, say, a family of four close to $500. So that's meaningful inflation relief. Look, when it comes to a price on pollution, it looks like our government and this iteration of the Conservative Party is going to have to agree to differ. We believe that climate action today is absolutely essential. It's a moral imperative, for sure. Speaking as finance minister, though, I really can't emphasize too much the extent to which it is an economic imperative. Canada is a trading nation. We are a small trade-exposed economy. The EU and the United States are moving aggressively with climate action. Our country needs to go there too. Otherwise, we will not have the markets for the products that we want to sell. And a price on pollution is by far the most economically effective way to achieve climate action. Our government knows it's the right thing to do.
So thanks. And of all of the countries that you speak about in terms of trade relationships in the G7, we are the only ones that have raised fuel taxes since this period of inflation started. So I want to know, the governor of Canada, the governor of the Bank of Canada, told this committee what, frankly, I think what the minister couldn't, the carbon tax drives inflation. So I want to know, and I want to just a yes or no, do you think it's fair to triple the carbon tax at a time of record inflation where families are struggling? They're struggling for groceries, gas, to heat their homes. 51% of Canadians have reported using a food bank, and students are sleeping in shelters in this country. So is tripling the carbon tax fair on them right now?
What I think is fair, what I know is fair, is to act clearly and decisively on the climate, on the green transition, which Canadian workers need, which, we are both members of Parliament for Ontario. Canadian auto workers urgently need our government to act on climate. That is what our government is doing. And we're doing it in an equitable way by returning money to Canadian families. That check for $745 that Ontario families are receiving, that is meaningful. The $1,000 Alberta families are receiving, that is meaningful. More than $1,000 that Saskatchewan families are receiving, that is meaningful, and that is fair.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, MP Landsman. And now we'll hear from the Liberals for 5 minutes of questions. MP Baker.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here with us today. And I'd like to start by echoing the words of our chair, Mr. Fonseca, at the outset, and start by thanking you for your work and your leadership in supporting the people of Ukraine as they fight Russia's genocidal war. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my colleagues who are here on both sides of the aisle for their support and their advocacy and their unity. I think that's been incredibly important, and I thank you all. I've spoken on a number of occasions in this committee, Minister, in Parliament and other settings, to advocate for Canada to do everything possible to support the Ukrainian people as they defend themselves from this invasion. And some people may attribute that to my Ukrainian heritage. But the reality is that I've always argued that Canada should do those things, that we should support the Ukrainian people, because I've always believed that it's in the interests of people around the world and in the interests of Canadians. I say that because the war is hurting all of us. It's obviously an existential crisis for Ukrainians, but it's a humanitarian disaster with 12 million refugees leaving Ukraine. We have hundreds of millions of people facing food insecurity or starvation because Vladimir Putin has cut off food exports from Ukraine. It's a threat to our security and to global security. But it is also, in my view, a key reason that the cost of living for Canadians is so high. Why fuel prices, why food prices are so high. So why energy prices are so high. So Ukrainians are not just fighting for themselves, they're also fighting for us, and I believe we need to be fighting for them. And I think we can be very proud of what we've done to support the Ukrainian people. But in my view, Minister, it won't be enough until Ukraine wins this war and wins a decisive victory in this war, which includes Crimea and includes the Donbass, the territories that Russia invaded in 2014. And I say that because not doing so would be a victory for Russia. It would condone the genocide that we've seen in Ukraine, and it would invite others to do this again. And that would mean security risks that would cause inflation in the years to come. So in my view, if we want to stop inflation, Ukraine needs to win the war decisively. And so my question to you, Minister, is what, in your view, is the impact of Russia's war on Ukraine on the inflation and the cost of living that Canadians are struggling with today?
Thank you very much, Ivane. I think that is a very relevant question. I think we all appreciate that even absent Vladimir Putin's illegal and barbaric invasion of Ukraine, the recovery from the COVID recession was going to be challenging. We did the unprecedented thing of shutting down the economy, and the large industrialized economies did the same thing. And we all also did the unprecedented thing of providing an economic backstop. And so unwinding that was always going to be, was never going to be smooth. What has happened to exacerbate the challenge the world economy is facing is Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. We spoke earlier with Ms. Landsman about energy prices and the challenge those are posing to Canadians. I think we all understand the chief driver of those elevated energy prices is Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine. And the situation in Europe is much, much more troubling, causing, real challenges with simultaneously inflation and economic growth. So I absolutely do believe that an important part of Canada's inflation fighting strategy has to be to support Ukraine and to ensure that Ukraine does win in the war against Vladimir Putin. And I would just conclude by saying, I also think we need to appreciate that February 24th is a watershed moment for the world. I think Olaf Scholz, again, has described it as a Zeitenwende, like a world-changing moment. I think that going forward, we, the democracies, need to understand the dangers of building our economies on relationships with dictatorships. And I think we're already seeing that kind of an approach, which Janet Yellen calls friendshoring. I think we need to develop that in the days to come, and there should be opportunities there for Canada.
I think Thank you,
Thank you,
Minister.
Minister.
MP Baker, thank you. We are now going to go to the block, and MP Samari for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much. As Mr. Baker said concerning our commitment to Ukrainians, this is not a question of heritage, it's a question of justice. And I'd like to thank you for your commitment to Ukrainians. So I have two questions. The first question is about the Canadian Fund for Communities. The government is financing municipality programs with labor shortages. Oftentimes, delays are very long. Communities are affected by these delays. And so there's a lack of flexibility from the government. For this community fund, and generally, can the government commit to being more flexible to help communities? And then my second question I will ask right away concerns a bill that was passed before the last elections to build two it's a bill that many accountants don't want to use because they're waiting for the government to tell them how they can properly apply it. So will you be coming out with directives or a new bill that will give clarity to how this bill can be applied this fall? Thank you again for your help. Thank you very much. And firstly, thank you for your comments on Ukraine. Mr. Samari, I saw a poll that stated that support for Ukraine is actually strongest in Quebec. I don't think that it is a question of heritage. I think it's the fact that Quebecers are very compassionate towards Ukrainians. So thank you very much for your words. So you mentioned two issues. Firstly, concerning municipalities. We need to find a balanced position between the importance for flexibility, but on the other hand, the importance to deliver. But we will try to find this balance. Concerning intergenerational transfers, so we support this law. Everyone agrees on that. We want to ensure that when we specify things about this bill, everyone will agree on it. And this is what we're going to try to do. Thank you.
From the NDP, and MP Julian for 2.5+ minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to come back to the topic of timing. Jagmeet Singh suggested that the GST-HST credits be done, but now the government is talking about, I asked you before about if you could give me a date about sending this to the House of Commons if it is passed this week. When will this reimbursement be available to Canadians?
Je suis jalouse de votre excellent français.
I'm quite jealous of your excellent French. I agree with you that Canadians are in dire need of the support. It's a great thing that we're talking about this bill today. But we still have to go about a certain number of steps. The House of Commons, the Senate. I can assure you of two things. Firstly, myself and my partners will be doing as much as we can to move things ahead quickly. And we will also be working with the CRA to ensure that they are able to distribute payments as quickly as possible after we, the legislators, have done our work. And another thing that's very important is that we cannot forget the role of the Senate and our colleagues there in the Senate.
Ma deuxième question, c'est sur ces questions.
My second question is about eligibility throughout Canada and in some regions in Quebec. We've spoken of Bill C-31, about housing, about dental care. These are vital for families, and I think we all agree on this. But these programs are not necessarily compatible with one another. So today, can you assure us that you are going to do all that you are able to do to ensure that throughout Canada people have access to dental care and that this housing benefit will apply to all Canadians who are in need? Yes. Yes, and you know very well that it is complex. And the relationship between the federal level and Quebec is unique. But the federal level is working in good faith. As Mr. Samari reassured us and our colleagues from Quebec have stated, we know that Quebecers need just as much help in terms of housing, in terms of dental care, as Canadians in any other province do. And so, yes, we will be doing all that we can.
And now we'll have the Conservatives up for 5 minutes. MP Chambers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister. It's great to see you, as always, at this committee. Just a couple questions on process. Curious as to whether you asked your department or if your department provided you any briefing on whether this spending measure would lead to inflation, whether it's inflationary.
Good to see you too. We, as I said in my opening remarks, our government, the Department of Finance, I personally am very, very mindful of elevated inflation and very, very mindful of the importance of not having fiscal policy fight monetary policy. That is a key concern. And with this legislation, which I'm really glad the Conservatives now support as well, what we've tried to do is find a careful balance of providing some inflation relief targeted at the most vulnerable, but ensuring that the additional
Minister,
sums are small.
Respectfully, the question is whether you asked your department or whether department provided you any analysis as to whether this spending measure would add to inflation, yes or no. Is there a briefing note or some analysis that determines whether this spending package will add to inflation?
We have excellent economists who work in the Department of Finance.
Minister, I know you're a very intellectually curious person, and you're very smart, and so I'm curious as to whether you wondered whether this package is going to add to inflation so that maybe the government could reduce spending in other ways to offset this measure.
I think all members of this committee are very smart, and I think all MPs are very smart. We looked carefully at the level of spending. and we looked carefully at the need to provide some targeted support to Canadians. As I said in my opening remarks, the incremental cost of the new measures is 0.1% of Canada's GDP. And I think it's also really important to bear in mind, Canada's, not only is our debt to GDP the lowest in the G7, our deficit is the lowest in the G7.
Okay,
so
we
we're
didn't get a
striking
question, so
balance.
we'll move on. Minister, you mentioned the deficit is really good. Well, the deficit's really good is because Canadians are being crushed by inflation, and the government is posting record revenues every year, every month, every week, record revenues on the backs of Canadians. So now the government is getting rich from inflation, and yet we're supposed to be very thankful that you're giving just a little bit back to Canadians in this bill. So are you going to just keep spending these record revenues, which are going to drive inflation higher?
So it's maybe worth, as a starting point, starting by saying, I'm very glad that Conservatives support this measure. It is the right thing to do, and everyone around this table is agreed on that. In terms of inflation, we really have been careful to strike a balance between targeted, compassionate support and fiscal responsibility. And from my perspective, the proof point is comparisons across the G20. Countries around the G20 are in a similar economic situation to our own. Canada has the lowest deficit. That is meaningful. That speaks to fiscal responsibility.
Thank you, Minister. Canada has the lowest deficit because we are crushing our citizens with inflation and reaping the rewards. The government is the only entity in this country that is significantly benefiting from inflation. That's why you have all this money to give out. And in fact, your entire fiscal plan is based on inflation staying quite high. This is why you're able to spend this kind of money. But I'm glad that you mentioned comparisons, and you brought up the German chancellor. You know, they just announced cuts to their gas taxes last week. They announced pauses to their energy costs to provide relief on the single measure that's driving inflation. And so we are the only country that is choosing to increase taxes on energy. So why do we believe that we know better than the rest of the world on the price of energy and increasing our taxes like the carbon tax?
Lots of points in there, Mr. Chambers. So I'm going to start where you began, which is talking about Canada's relative fiscal position in the G7. Now, the reality is inflation in Canada is elevated. It's too high. But it is actually lower than in our peer countries. Inflation in Canada is lower than in the US. It's lower than in the UK. It's lower than in the Eurozone. And yet, even though inflation is lower here, we also have a lower deficit than in other G7 countries. And again, you know, I think Canadians expect all of us around the table to have a little bit of partisan back and forth. And that's why I turn to the international comparison for a proof point, because to me, that's about not marking our own homework and showing where Canada stands relative to our peer countries.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, MP Chambers. And our final questioner for the Minister today will be, we have MP Chattel up for 5 minutes for the Liberals. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And welcome to our Deputy Prime Minister. So I have witnessed the crisis that Canadians have faced, and I've been very concerned in terms of the pandemic and the economy. And what I have to say is that during this crisis, you reassured us. You were there for Canadians when we needed you. And then we've recovered with strength from the pandemic, and so congratulations. And it's because of a very, very targeted actions that you were able to do so. And we've had a very low level of losses. And in the G7, people are often jealous of our debt to GDP ratio. Today, inflation is affecting everyone. And we are still in a great situation in terms of inflation compared to other G7 countries. But I'm in agreement with my colleague. Our members of our ridings are struggling right now. I'm in a rural riding. And sometimes people have a hard time being able to just get gas to take their kids to daycare, to go get food. So the question that I'd like to ask is, how are you balancing the support that we are offering to the most vulnerable, whilst at the same time creating a program that will not aggravate inflation?
Merci pour la question, Madame Chat.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Chatel, and thank you for your very hard work. For our government, for citizens, it's an advantage to have such an experienced economist. And so, thank you. I appreciate your work. I think you've asked the most important question today, as well as the most difficult question. The reality is that day-to-day life for the average Canadian today is very difficult. And it's important that we all recognize this situation. At the same time, I believe in Canadians' logic. I know that Canadians are intelligent, and I hope that Canadians will understand that, yes, we need targeted support for the most vulnerable Canadians, those who are not well off. But at the same time, we need a financially responsible approach. If we look at measures taken by other countries, if we set aside the idea of being fiscally responsible, then the situation could worsen very quickly. We could, in fact, make Canadians' day-to-day reality even worse than it already is. And so our government will continue upon the path of a balanced approach. So yes, we will continue to offer targeted support for the most vulnerable. We will be offering tax relief, as we are discussing today, supporting housing, supporting dental care, and I think this is an ethical requirement. But at the same time, we will continue to use a responsible approach. The reality is that this means we will not be able to do everything. Simply, the reality is that, again, we can't do everything that people might want. So I hope that now we will be able to find an approach that, on the one hand, will support those that need help, and on the other hand, will allow us to maintain a fiscally responsible approach. Other measures have been suggested. I think it's always important to have a flexible approach. We need to also be humble. We always need to recognize the reality that there is a lot of uncertainty in the world, and we always need to be ready to look at the reality in Canada and in the world, and to take new measures if necessary. Thank you very much to both of you.
I want to thank you for coming before Finance Committee to answer many questions here on C30, but also you answered many on other pieces of legislation, as well as on inflation and the cost of living. So we thank you for that. Members, we're going to suspend just before we bring in the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the officials that will be coming in for our next panel.
Mr. Chair? No.
And we have the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer here with us. We've got Jason Jacques, Director General of Costing and Budgetary Analysis, and Nezardine Amar, Senior Analyst, Costing and Budgeting Analysis. So we've got you for 30 minutes. And we'll hear some opening remarks.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Deputy Chair, and members of the committee. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. My name is Jason Jakes, and I am the Director General of the for the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Office.
On behalf of the office, Mr. Giroux unfortunately sends his regrets. Unfortunately, he had pre-existing travel commitments, which he was unable to cancel. Consistent with our mandate to provide independent, non-partisan analysis to Parliament, our office released a cost estimate of Bill C-30 on September 29th. As you know, this bill proposes temporarily doubling the GST credit to support those most affected by inflation. As you've read in the very good analytical background material generated by the Library of Parliament, our office estimates the Bill C-30 will cost approximately $2.6 billion, benefit about 11.6 million individuals, and provide an average household benefit of approximately $225. Nezardine and I would be pleased to respond to any questions you may have regarding our analysis of C-30, as well as other questions you may have regarding related PBO reports. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, merci. And so members, just with limited time, we'll only probably have enough for one round. We are starting with, and you may want to split your time if that is the case, MP Albus for the Conservatives for 6+ minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Parliamentary Budget Office representatives that are here today. Thank you for the work you do. I will be splitting my time with Philip, or I should say MP Lawrence, so I'll get right to the point. So in your work, you've shown that this is going to be a $2.6 billion cost of the bill versus the government's own numbers of 2.5. Can you name exactly why the discrepancy?
I think
or is it just that everything costs more under this government?
I think as a starting point, typically, and again, we generate about 40 to 50 cost estimates a year. I would say that in comparison, there's virtually always a difference between our estimates and those generated by the government. And I would say in the big scheme of things, this ends up being a rounding error overall. In addition, Nesruddin may have some additional, more detailed commentary with respect to the precise modeling that we used in comparison to that used by the Department of Finance.
Thank you. I think the difference between the two estimates could be explained by the different source of data that we used to calculate the additional GST credit. Our costing is based on stats. For example, our costing is based on Statistics Canada's population income projection using 2017 survey with some economic adjustment to consider the economic reality in Canada right now. However, I assume that Finance Department estimates are based on the most recent T1 database. That's the main source of this difference. And in addition to that, I think since we are using Statistics Canada data, assuming implicitly that everyone eligible could claim the GST credit, however, the reality could be slightly different because some people they cannot, or they don't, or there is no tax field, and there is no information on that small portion of population, and that could also explain the difference on cost estimates between PBO estimates and the Finance Department's estimates. Thank you.
Okay. In the interest of time and Mr. Lawrence getting the chance to speak, we've had a bit of a discussion today with the Minister of Finance around this bill, as well as other bills such as C-31. And in fact, all government spending in this environment, from a macroeconomic viewpoint, is the government in its spending, is it inflationary in general?
I would stick to very safe ground, which was that already tilled by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, my boss, last week when he appeared before the Senate Banking Committee. And at that point, he indicated that conceptually, any point in which you are spending additional money, conceptually, it would be inflationary. However, given the sums of money involved in the current situation, it's relatively negligible. So it's a relatively small amount.
Could the government have cut back on other spending and to offset those concerns?
Other governments, other governments certainly historically, other governments have done that, performed that type of activity. What I would mention as well is next week we are releasing our economic and fiscal update. And with it, we will be responding to questions raised by parliamentarians precisely on this point with respect to the inflationary impact of the government's affordability agenda, looking precisely as well at C30 and C31. So those numbers will be released in all their glory next week.
Thank you. I'll pass my time to MP Lawrence, what's ever remaining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. So just want to go over some quick math if I can. So you put the benefit per individual who's eligible at $225 or thereabouts. Is that correct? And what's the cost to administer? So the total cost to the taxpayer per individual eligible?
That is a great question for which we do not sadly have an answer because we did not incorporate administrative costs. One of the major reasons that we don't incorporate administrative costs as part of our cost estimates for these types of measures is that we found that it ranges significantly. Okay. And often we're not in a good position to, while we're in a good position to read what departments provide to us in terms of how they're planning on spending the money, we're not in a particularly good position to actually understand why in some situations it costs a heck of a lot more than one would anticipate to make a minor adjustment to a
I would agree with you there,
program.
sir. Yeah, it's amazing sometimes how much a dollar can cost the government to give a dollar. And I'm also just reviewing, just have your report from March this year, distributional analysis of the federal carbon pricing under a healthy environment. Under there, I see that the average cost for Albertans is $8.45 of the tripling of the carbon tax, net of the rebate, $4.95 for Saskatchewan, $3.10. And so I'm going to ask a relatively simple question, and I suspect I'll get a great answer in this, but it would be a lot more efficient, economical, and beneficial to Canadians if they simply reduced if they canceled their planned tripling of the carbon tax instead of this rebate, correct?
That sounds like a policy question for which...
Sorry, just the math of it, because individuals are getting $2.25 from the GST rebate versus the average is going to be significantly more that they're going to be paying in the tripling of the carbon tax.
I don't, and again, certainly from our perspective, the government has not necessarily presented in the past, the government has not necessarily connected the two measures of the federal carbon levy and the GST credit. So from a policy perspective, it's difficult for us to compare the two.
But 845 is larger than 225,
Thank you,
right?
MP Lawrence, and thank you, MP Albus, for those. Thank you for your questions. We are moving to the Liberals. It's good to see our colleague here, Heath MacDonald, back from PI. I know it's been a challenging time over on the island.
Thank you, Peter. Or Chair, sorry. It's been a week. Anyway, just a corporate question. I just want to take you back. So how many people is this temporary measure going to affect? Individuals, did you say?
Our count is similar to that mentioned by the Minister of Finance, so it's roughly 11 million.
Okay. And my colleague talked about the administrative side, but basically we're doubling the GST tax rebate, which is already a process. So I'm just wondering, would there be any concern there for administration on top of that?
Again, I am a pointy-headed economist, and sadly, I am not well placed to guess how many additional officials one would need to hire at the Canada Revenue Agency to reprogram code for a specific program, or so on and so forth. I would say we have looked at administrative costs for various programs over the years. There's a significant divergence, and occasionally it's somewhat unexpected how expensive seemingly relatively straightforward things are.
So is that like new programs or existing programs?
Both. So I'd say stay tuned. We're currently doing work on Bill C-31. So in the case of new programs, the new dental program proposed by the government, obviously administrative costs come into play on that front, as well as in addition to the housing benefit as well.
So last week, Parliamentary Budget Office appeared before the Senate. You talked a little bit about that, discussing C-30. And he was quoted as saying, if I can find it here, would not affect materially the fiscal sustainability of the federal government. Can you give us a more broad definition on what he meant by that?
Sure. So we do produce a report every year with respect to analyzing the fiscal sustainability of the federal government, also looking at subnational governments, so generally speaking, provinces and territories as well. The last time we produced that report, the federal government was deemed to be sustainable over a 75-year period. So it had additional fiscal flexibility to actually undertake additional spending, of which the $2.6 billion countenanced in Bill C-30 would fall well within that range.
And the second part of that is he said he didn't think there would be a measurable or significant impact on the economy. So can you just kind of, or it wouldn't cause a spike in inflation, I think is what he was quoted as saying. So how do you measure that? Like, how do you measure that?
Well, we met, again, when he was speaking last week, that internally we measure it as part of our macroeconomic modeling. So we have a macroeconomic model with close to 400 equations, and when you drop $2.6 billion into the Canadian economy, which is several trillion, we're able to come up with point estimates or estimates of the inflationary impact. But needless to say, given the sums of money involved, size of the economy, size of how much we're actually looking at spending incrementally in Bill C-30, it's relatively small.
Okay.
Well, small for the federal government, but going back to a point that's been made earlier, potentially quite substantial with respect to the impact on households and the targeted households.
It's time, Chair. 3 minutes. The federal government shouldered the lion's share of the pandemic spending and sheltered many households from having to take on debt over the course of COVID. And we're doing that again. And it's, helping Canadians with the cost of living. We know that the pressures that most Canadians and most families are under. What sort of impact will that have on finances of governments, provincial and federal, or do you have that depth on that evaluation?
In terms of and again, with respect to Bill C-30, we have not looked at the precise impact of Bill C-30 in terms of the extent to which it's going to alleviate the impact on households and their budgets at this point, nor have we looked at any interaction effect with respect to provincial governments. But Nezardine, do you have any additional details with respect to the relative household impacts of Bill C-30?
Actually, I may have some additional information related to that. So I have conducted some kind of distribution analysis to see the effect of C-30 on household incomes. What I have seen is that the 20% of households with the lowest income will see an increase in their disposable income of 1.1%, and they will and of course they will see the highest increase in comparison with other household income groups. That's one fact that I have observed, and I can tell you about it with confidence.
So basically, we have a large impact on households positively, and really a negative impact, or I wouldn't use the word maybe a negative, but a very little impact on government financial stability and sustainability. Is that kind of fair to say that?
That's a good paraphrasing of what my boss said last week at the Senate Banking Committee.
Okay. Good.
I think you're about time there, MP McDonald. Thank you very much. We are going to now hear from the Bloc and MP Saint-Marie for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I'd like to recognize our colleague that is coming from his riding. We can see that in the maritime provinces and eastern Quebec, they have been going through very much, and so I'm happy to be able to see you here today. Jack Hammer, thank you very much for being here. And like I said to your boss, I say it every time he comes to the committee, I'd like to congratulate you and thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing. It's very important that we be able to rely on such objective and rigorous analysis. So bravo and thank you. I read your report in detail on the impact of C-30. It's very well done. I think it was very clear. You said that you are currently working on an analysis of C-31. So I have some concerns about C-31. I'm wondering if that will be taken into account in your analysis. I'm concerned about insurance, that will Quebecers receive their fair share? So firstly, there's the Canada Housing Benefit. Unfortunately, Quebecers are not receiving this because in Quebec we have our own program. So can we expect that Quebecers will be able to make a request? Especially seeing that oftentimes these are low-income individuals. So can Quebecers expect to receive their fair share? Right now in C31, they don't take into account Quebec's unique system. And then dental care. In Bill C31, it's for those who are under the age of 11, but in Quebec, dental care is covered for those under the age of 9. So when we look at the application of this program, it looks as though if Quebecers have not spent anything, they will receive the money. But if they did spend something, they will be getting this check. So will Quebecers get their fair share? I don't know if you have any comments on this topic, or if you, I will be taking notes, so I'm listening.
Je peux dire que nous sommes au courant.
Thank you very much for the questions. We are aware of the current situation in Quebec as well as in other provinces, because yes, there are already programs in other provinces. So in terms of the Canada Dental benefit and the Canada Housing benefit, we have included different provinces. So concerning the Government of Canada's approach with Quebec, there is already a program that supports children under the age of 10 years, but we don't have an answer right now. The Government of Canada will need to explain how they are going to make this approach coherent. In a few weeks, maybe there will be another invite for the Minister of Health, for the Minister of Finance to explain this better, and we may be able to also come to explain the cost estimations. Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't think C31 will be studied in this committee, but I'm sure my colleagues will be able to ask you these questions when the bill is studied. Over the last year, the Canadian economy, as is the case in many countries, has been going through an inflation crisis. Prices have been going up more than usual. C30 is supposed to be a response to this problem. At your office, have you evaluated the additional income for the Government of Canada that have stemmed from inflation? If you have information on this, I would be happy to receive them, that you send them to the committee. If not, could you send it later on? Because I think it's always interesting to have a perspective on the measures that are implemented by the government and the cost of them and what effect inflation has had on this.
Oui, nous avons.
Thank you for the question. Yes, we've considered the impact of inflation on the Government of Canada, on the government's financial situation. I think it was 5 months ago and 6 months ago, we submitted a report. Of course, this has had a positive impact on the Government of Canada. But the current situation is somewhat different. Next week, there will be more details coming out because we will be publishing a new economic and financial predictions. Thank you.
Now, our final questioner is from the NDP. We have MP Julian for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Thanks so much for being here. I just wanted to start off by confirming that the amounts that you see from the calculations around the temporary enhancement to the GST and HST, it runs from $192 up to $402 for a single-parent family?
That's correct.
Okay. And that benefit will go to how many Canadians?
By our calculations, 11.6 million.
Okay. Because this is something that Jagmeet Singh, as NDP leader, was pushing for many, many months. Fortunately, I think the government finally listened. It would have been better to have this months ago, but better late than never in terms of that benefit to people. So thank you for confirming that. I want to contrast that amount that you've estimated at $2.6 billion with another figure from another PBO study, which dates back to June 20th, 2019. And that was the study on international taxation. And I'll just, to refresh all of our memories, reread the conclusion paragraph, which states, for illustrative purposes, if we assume that 10% of the $996 billion in reportable transactions with offshore financial centers had avoided corporate income taxes in Canada, it would represent an amount of $100 billion of taxable income that should have been taxed at the general rate of 15%. Looking at electronic funds transfers, that's EFTs, would generate an even higher estimate. Indeed, if we assume that 10% of the $1.639 billion in outgoing EFTs to offshore financial centers had avoided taxes, that would represent approximately $164 billion in taxable income and $25 billion of tax revenues lost in a single year. And I wanted to start off by asking whether the PBO has done an update to those. These are astronomical figures of money that is simply going to offshore financial centers, while we Canadians really struggle to make ends meet. Have you done an update of that study?
Thank you for the question. We have not done an update to that study. The primary reason we have not done an update to that study is that the Government of Canada, and in particular the Canada Revenue Agency, has actually been undertaking a comprehensive study of the tax cap on their own. And based upon the quality of that work, we didn't think it was actually productive for us to duplicate the work of the Canada Revenue Agency, because by and large, it corroborates the number that we released in 2019, that there's potentially tens of billions of dollars of uncollected tax revenue, of which a good part of it is potentially not being paid by multinational corporations or being held in offshore tax havens.
Well, thank you for that. So if that's the case, then, if we're looking at $25 billion a year, and that at the time, I remember the PBO at this Finance Committee saying that's a conservative estimate. It may indeed be higher. That would mean $100 billion that has been lost to overseas financial centers over the last 4 years since the study was taken, including the financial years 2019, 2020, 2021, and of course this year by the time we hit December 31st. Would that be accurate, about at least $100 billion?
Yeah, I think grosso modo that would be accurate, only with the caveat that the Government of Canada, and again, it's now every year for the past 15 years, the one thing you can always expect to see in a budget document is additional money for the Canada Revenue Agency to ensure tax compliance and enforcement, to hire additional auditors to shake the trees, or I guess shake the towels on the beaches in the Turks and Caicos to find the additional money that's not being paid in tax revenue. So there has been additional money that has been given to the Canada Revenue Agency to do that.
Yes, though, as we've seen around the Finance Committee, there has not been a single prosecution, not a single one, whether we're talking about the Paradise Papers, the Bahamas Papers. Every single one of these scams that take money from Canadians, at this point, the CRA is not charged, let alone successfully convicted a single person. And that's certainly, Mr. Chair, work for the Finance Committee. I know that the member from Almo-Transcona is on that, and I hope the whole Finance Committee is. So that's an astronomical amount of $100 billion, and yet, and if you'll permit me a bit of a partisan comment, Mr. Chair, the leader of the official opposition is suggesting instead that what happens is we cut back on CPP and unemployment insurance, I don't know whether PBO has done any study about the impacts of that, of not making sure that we have adequate pensions in place, adequate supports for employment insurance. Is that something that the PBO has been looking into?
No, not recently. The last time we did look at the current CPP enhancements that are currently underway for the increase in rates, which would have been back in 2016. So we did look at the economic impact at that juncture of the requirement to pay additional premiums, but otherwise nothing recent on that front.
Merci, and thank you, MP Julian. We want to thank on the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and we want to thank Monsieur Jacques, Monsieur Amar for coming before us and answering so many questions, not just on C30, but on a number of pieces of legislation, as we've done here today. So thank you very much, members. We are going to suspend, and as we move into our clause-by-clause consideration of C30. Just to get started, members, on C30, clause-by-clause consideration, we've got about 23 minutes or so to get this done. And that takes us to the 2 hours of today's meeting. With us, just via video conference on the screen, we have back Lindsay Guire and Pierre LeBlanc, if any questions need to be asked of the ministry. And so we have our Ledge clerk here to any other questions that may be asked about the legislation. But it sounds like we've got a lot of support here for C30. I do see a hand up, MP Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, not being able to read the minds of yourself or any other members, I just would say that if people feel comfortable with clause by clause, if you could perhaps consider testing unanimous consent of the room to move forward, where we just, instead of having votes for every single part, if we all can agree that this bill should be passed, maybe as you hit a clause, you could ask for questions, and if there's no questions, then just simply see if there's unanimous consent for the motion to move forward. Hopefully we can work that way.
Thank you, MP Albus. I think that's a great suggestion, and I will be using that tool here in the room. So let's move forward and see how quickly we can get this done. So pursuant to Standing Order 75(1), consideration of Clause 1, a short title, is postponed. Chair calls Clause 2. Shall Clause 2 carry?
Agreed.
Okay, carried. Shall Clause 3 carry?
Agreed.
Carried. Shall Clause 4 carry? Agreed.
Agreed.
Carried. Shall the short title carry?
Agreed.
Agreed. Carried. Shall the bill carry?
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay. Bill's carried. Shall the chair report the bill to the House?
Agreed.
Okay. Carried. So And no reprint? Okay, yeah, no reprint. So we are good. Well, members, congratulations. That may be a record time. Thank you, and thank you, MP Albus, for that great suggestion. Thank you, members, and terrific. So I will look to table this tomorrow. I think, yeah, clerk, 10 o'clock tomorrow will be tabled in the House. So thank you, members, and so on that, shall we adjourn? Agreed.
Agreed.